Hey everyone, I'm Scott with HEB. Welcome, happy holidays to you. I've got a great recipe I'm going to show you. Today we're going to do our herb crusted beef tenderloin. It's going to be fantastic and it's all about the holidays. We're here to help, and right now I'm going to help you fix this recipe. Stick around. All right, so this herb crusted beef tenderloin, of course, starts with our beef tenderloin, right? So we're going to start with the beef tenderloin. Now this is trimmed, it's ready to go, it's beautiful. If you consider yourself more of an artisan and you kind of want to do things on your own, you can definitely buy one of our whole, uncut, untrimmed beef tenderloins and trim it down yourself. Or you can go to one of our certified meat cutters at your local HEB meat market and they'll be happy to trim one down. We also sell them in our fresh case, these natural or the regular choice prime, whichever one you want to go, beef tenderloins. These are fantastic. But before we get to this, we have to make the herb crust for the beef tenderloin. So it's going to begin with real simple. Nice woodsy herbs. We've got some thyme and rosemary and the chive that I want to have a little bit of that aromatic. So no garlic in this, but I want to add a little bit of chive to kind of kick up the flavor. So you can see here I've got some of my herbs. Now we're going to add this to a salt mixture. Now, if you have a salt and pepper grinder, fantastic. I love to use the True Texas Barbecue salt and pepper blend. It's a great blend. That's what we use on all of our True Texas Barbecue briskets. So I'm going to do about about a quarter cup. I'm going to go heavy, like my salt. What can I say? Little salt and pepper, and then I'm just going to chop the herbs. So here's a note. So some of these woodsy herbs, a little tip here, you do not want to chop this all together because the woody part of the rosemary. Have you ever been to somewhere? A lot of times they like to use the rosemary wood stems as a skewer for like a shish kebab. It's a very heavy, thick piece of wood most times, depending on the rosemary you're going to get. These are our local Patty's Herbs rosemary. They're fantastic. So just take your herb, your rosemary, and just total at the top. And I got kind of bumbling fingers, so you know it'd be a little easier for you. And just strip it down. That way the leaves come straight off, and then just pluck the top off. And that way, if you wanted to, you could definitely use this. There's a lot of rosemary flavor in this. You could use this as one of your skewers. I'm just going to do that, all of these. Now, as much or as little as you like, obviously it depends on how big your beef tenderloin actually is. If you're using a whole, like, giant, 6-8 pound beef tenderloin, you want to use a little more herb, you want to, feel free. But if you find yourself using just a smaller tenderloin like I have, I got a couple trim pieces. You don't need to go crazy, but again, this is about, look at how big this dude, look at that. You don't want to chop that. That's basically like you throw that in your fire. That's a hefty piece. All right, little rosemary I've got, and the thyme is the exact same thing, the tip for thyme. Again, the top of these, I didn't mean to rhyme, but it just kind of happened that way. The top of the thyme is a little more tender. You can totally chop those up, that's fine. Once you start getting down to the thicker pieces though, exact same thing. Just hold the top and just kind of strip those off, and if you get some of the little pieces that go with it, no worries. I just kind of gather this all up, strip a few more. Again, just stripping these. Now, what's great is every time later today, as you're doing things, you're gonna go, why do I smell, what's that woodsy herbaceous wonderfulness on my fingers? Because even after you wash your hands, the oils from some of these herbs will stick there, and it's not a bad scent to have just floating around the house during the holidays. All right, so here we go. Just going to strip some of that. So you can see these woodsy things. You don't want to chop those, just get rid of them. I feel like that's pretty good on time. What do you think on that, Rob? Does that look about perfect for your tenderloin here? You taking home? All right, that'll work. All right, so there's our woody, I would say woody herbs. Now the chives are really, really tender, so I'm going to set those aside for now. I'm going to chop up this first. Now, if you want to utilize your food processor, a blender, whatever it is, absolutely, I would do the exact same thing, but because we're here together, I'm going to chop these up because why not? So hand over the top of my knife, really secure, holding the knife by the bolster. I don't want to hold back here because as I'm doing it, I could, it's very floppy and wobbly, so I want to make sure it's nice and secure. And again, the rosemary, depending on how old it is or how young it is, it can be a little fresh and it sometimes can be really hard to chop through. So you just want to really bear down on that. And you can see here. And again, it's an herb crusted beef tenderloin. You don't really have to like pulverize them. If you like a little more of those pretty herbs kind of sitting on top, I think that's a great thing. I like those as well. People want to be able to identify those herbs in there. Unless you're trying to keep it top secret, and then mince them away so nobody knows what it is, and it'll be your secret ingredient. We won't tell anybody you got it off HEB.com. And it's like my secret concoction of blend of herbs and spices. All right, that's pretty good. So I can kind of tell a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of thyme in there. That's good for this. So this is going to go right into my salt. Now, here is a tip. If You make this a day in advance and let it sit in the salt. The salt is the great extractor, right? So it's going to pull out some of the essential oils that we've pulverized when we started chopping these herbs. So the longer you let this sit, the more that fragrance is going to kind of come out. Now, it doesn't have to be. You can literally, like I'm going to show you right now, I'm going to chop them, I'm going to throw them in there, I'm going to toss it all together. I'm going to season my beef tenderloin, and we're going to cook it. But if you wanted to let it sit a little longer, you could. Now, chives, same thing. We're just going to do a little, like snowflakes. Just going to chop these really, really tiny. This is one of those things, I feel like chives is one of those things that in a beef tenderloin or something like this, a little piece of meat, it's kind of nice to see those little ringlets. You know, as you're kind of doing, it's just kind of nice to see those little flecks of green in there. And again, same thing. This guy will extract a lot of flavor when it sits in the salt. So that's about good right there. I want to give a little more mince again. I'm going to leave these a little more whole. If they're a little bigger chop, I don't mind that at all. Again, it's totally up to your preference how you want to do them. Here we go. All right. So then this is just going to get mixed all around here. If you need more salt or pepper, or you feel like you overdid it on the herbs, just add a little more. You don't need to season the meat with the entire mixture if you don't want to. I mean, I don't want to put a whole quarter cup of salt. I mean, I would, but I mean, you know, you don't have to if you're a little more salt sensitive. So I'm just going to give us a little mix, kind of like, you know, just mash it in there a little bit. And then here's what we're going to do here. Now, typically you'd add a little bit of let me move this cutting board out of the way here. We're going to season up our beef here. So again, I went to my local H-E-B meat market. I saw my certified meat cutter. They had a fresh case, and I said, hey, you got any full? I need a beef tenderloin. They have different kinds. They got prime and choice. I don't mind the choice tenderloin. I think it's great. I'm not a big, heavy, like fatted meat person, so I liked having a little more. I think choice is fine, a little leaner. The natural cut is also something to do. The H-E-B Natural is a fantastic line if you want to go that route as well. They have both tenderloins, and whoever you want to do it, choice, the prime, or the natural is what I was saying, right? Natural? All right, that's what I was making sure I keep up with you guys. All right, so a little oil on this just to get it lubricated here, just make sure everything sticks. So a little oil on this, just a little bit. Again, we don't need to go crazy here. Beautifully trimmed piece of tenderloin. This is like one of those things for the holidays where I feel like, you know, you got to kind of spoil yourself. I know a lot of people do prime rib, some people do ham, some people do the spiral ham. You know, I think it's kind of however you grew up. We didn't really grow up eating any of that stuff. So I'm all about making new traditions, and I do love roasting red meat for the holidays, whether it's prime rib or just a nice tenderloin like this. I feel like it's a time of the year, you're wrapping it up, spoil yourself. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to do this generous. So a little bit of the salt, pepper, and the herb mixture right over the top here. Just nice and coated. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tongs, and you're just going to give it a little turn here. And there's enough on the actual board here in a second when I do both sides. We're just going to kind of roll it around in that mixture, and that's all you really need to do. And again, time is on your side here for this. The more time you can give this, the better off you're going to be overall. So again, just really good. God, the smell of this is like incredible. Okay, so we're going to give us a little roll. And again, just kind of soak up all the herbs. If you feel like you want a little more, definitely do. I am definitely, if you ever watch our virtual classes, I'm a big salt person. I like a lot of flavor to everything, so I would definitely err on the side of overdoing for me a little bit. Again, that's to my taste. I say go with whatever you know your crowd's going to like. I'm going to get this a little bit more. This bigger piece is not quite as coated as I want it to be, so I'm going to give a little bit more. But just imagine, you got the salt, you got the pepper, all ready to go. That butcher pepper, a little thicker grind to it. The kosher salt in here, real clean, going with all those herbs. All right, I think that will do. So now, these get wrapped up in plastic wrap. Refrigerate them as long as you can. You can absolutely do this right now. If you let them sit half an hour while you're preheating your grill or your oven or whatever you're going to grill these on, or do it in a pan like I'm going to do it, whatever method you want to cook this at, you can let it sit for half an hour to an hour. The longer this sits, the more flavor it's going to extract, because again, the salt, the pepper, all those herbs, they're going to really start to kind of penetrate the meat, and it's going to be not dynamite, not ridiculous, yummy, just straight up. Everything gets in there. It all gets really happy. Everything gets to mingle. Just imagine, you're at a party. Nobody wants to have to come out and be like, hey, I'm that guy. It's like, you want a couple of drinks, let everything kind of slowly warm up. And then by the end of the night, you're karaokeing with all your friends. That's what we want this thing to be, is give it a slow time to warm up. You can absolutely go straight out the gate with karaoke, but this will do better resting. All right, in the fridge it goes. Okay, I put my tenderloin in the fridge. It rested. I gave it the full amount of resting. I gave it 8 hours overnight. I'm letting it do its thing, and you can see now through the magic of movies. Now, these were a little bit smaller, you might say, Scott. Weird. Movie magic, movie magic. But this just shows you, these have been sitting, though, overnight. They're beautiful. I just got them wrapped just like in plastic wrap here. Just sit them on a sheet tray. Now, always, my other tip would be to you, whenever you're going to wrap up meat like this, there's going to be juices, right? Because salt obviously is going to extract some of the moisture. Eventually, it's going to put it back in. However, there may be some juice, so always set these on a rack or in a bowl or something, just in case your plastic wrap fails you and you don't want to come in the next morning and it's leaking on the dessert or somebody made in the bottom of the fridge. That'd be tragic during the holidays, right? Not a good thing. All right, so these are going to get run wrapped. Look at this. You could smell this. You could only smell. All right, here we go. So our beautiful tenderloin, and again, they're just soaked up. Man, the smell of this is powerful. All right, so these are going to go onto our pan here. Now, they got a little bit of oil on them already. I'm going to discard these guys, but I'm going to give them a little bit more of my oil here. And I'm not going to put oil. I've got a cast iron skillet. In a second, we're going to go over to the oven, or go over to the stove. Oven's behind me, stove's to the right of me. And we're going to sear these, but I don't want to put a bunch of oil in the pan that I've got preheating, because when I do my cast iron skillet, whenever I do steaks, I will put a dry cast iron skillet over like medium heat and let it sit for like 45 minutes. Reason being, it's going to get nice and hot, and the cast iron holds the heat so well, it's really just going to be a nice sear is exactly what I want on this. And the best way to get this completely, the way it will turn out the best for you, is let this sit at least for 30 minutes while your pan is preheating on the stove. So this is kind of oiled up, it's ready to go, it won't stick to me now. It's not going to stick to me, I'm not going to cook it on myself. It's not going to stick to the pan. You know what I meant, right? All right, we're going to go to the pan, we're going to sear this off, and just show you just how easy this is. Okay, stove cam, you ready for this? So, just like I said earlier, I have my Cocinaware cast iron skillet preheated. It's been sitting here for about half an hour, probably about closer to 30, 38 minutes. Why does that matter to you? Why do you care exactly how many minutes? Because I like to be honest with you about how long it takes me to preheat my pan. 38 minutes is such a weird arbitrary number. You're like, Scott, why 38 minutes? It happened to be getting closer to 40, and I just picked that one. All right, it's nice and hot. Again, I've oiled up my tenderloins, and this is what you want to hear. This is it right here. Make sure, just so you can see, you don't want to leave any. I'm going to try and get all those little bits up. That is what you want to hear. The sound of beef caramelizing, the Maillard reaction, all that wonderful flavor kind of getting locked in there. So we're going to sear this for a couple of minutes on each side so that we can get a nice crust on it. And then I'm going to finish this, because I've got an oven-safe cast iron dish in the actual oven. I've got it preheated about 350. Now, if you have a smaller piece of tenderloin, you can absolutely finish it all here in the pan. You just want to regulate your heat, so that way you're going either on low or medium-low heat, so you get a nice sear, then turn the heat down low, and then you can either cover it up or just kind of let it sit. But I just figure it works a little better for me going in the oven. Now, also awesome to do this outside, because we're in Texas, which has perpetual grilling weather. You could definitely go outside and throw this on the grill and do it that way, and then either finish it in the oven if you've got a bigger one. But that way you just get that nice kind of crust on there, which I think is what you need. Especially for the holidays, you think of like prime rib, those big cuts of meat. Your hams, your holiday hams, they're glazed, they have that crust, right? That's what you want. So, I'm gonna let that go a little bit. See, it didn't stick, so I'm gonna let it go for a couple more minutes here. So that's just gonna go really, really simple. We're gonna let that cook a couple minutes aside. We'll check back in a second. All right, so how do you know it's time to flip, right? So if you're sitting there, you've got these two, I would say tenderloin, not a cheap cut of meat, right? So you wanna make sure you don't mess it up. So how do you know when it's time to flip? Well, the good thing about, like I would say, tenderloin or certain cuts of meat, like you would like let's say a nice pale piece of salmon, is because I have the cut side out, I can actually see when it starts to kind of caramelize on the bottom. So you can see where I had all this kind of beautiful pink in the center here. You see how the gray is starting to kind of creep up a little bit, so I can see that on both sides. This is basically now ready to flip, and I'll show you what that looks like. You ready, Rob? So, do you see the beautiful, you can't see it yet because the camera angle's off, but watch this, I'm going to turn it towards you. Wait for it. Pivot that around like that. See that beautiful color on there? Nice crust on either side. Now look at what's happening to the back of my thing. I'm going to point back to the camera. Can you see on this right here, you see how we cooked it? And there's a little bit of that kind of gray line which comes up because it's got a nice sear on it. Now, I'm going to finish this in the oven. Again, a nice whole piece of meat like that, nice and finished in the oven, nice dry heat, kind of let it sit. We've got a beautiful crust in there. The herbs smell ridiculous, that they're just kind of sitting there. I can smell the rosemary, the thyme, a little of that chive in there, but all that stuff, because we let it have the proper rest. We gave it its proper karaoke night. Everybody's all mingled, they're all good friends. Everything is really smelling good. All that flavor has really gotten inside the meat and has just flavored it throughout. So we're gonna kind of watch this, and again, as you can see from our camera angle, you'll just kind of see that it just starts to kind of creep up again. You definitely don't want to move this a lot. If you notice the meat is sticking, don't touch it. That's letting you know it's not ready yet. The Maillard reaction has not fully happened, so let it sit. But as you kind of watch on the edges here of your filet, you can kind of see where it's starting to kind of, the gray will start to creep up, and that's when we know we're ready to go to the oven. Now, you could sear it on all sides. I could definitely sear it on one more side. If I get 2 good sides I'm searing it on, I'm not so particular about, I need to go all the way around. I don't need a full crusty, hard crust on all sides. I just like to have a nice little top and bottom crust if you can. Now, you could, and I will, as soon as you start to cook it, obviously everything kind of tightens up, right? All the meat tightens up. So I'm gonna have a side here that I'll be able to flip it on when I go into the oven, so that way it'll also get a nice kind of sear on the edge as well, or kind of like help caramelize that bottom a little bit. And you'll see that in a second. This is gonna go, everything's happy. You're doing great. Nothing is wrong yet. You should have a glass of wine or some kind of beverage to accompany you. This is all easy, I'm telling you. The happiest of holidays coming up right here. Okay, so you can see now, you can get that camera angle, you can kind of see where that's also where it was a little more pink. Now it's getting a little more gray. And it should, when I rotate the meat now, it should not stick on me. You can see it did not stick. I'm gonna tilt it up. Look at that crust, look at that. Come on, that's Maillard, folks, Maillard. All right, I'm gonna turn it up on its last edge. This is how I'm gonna roast this in the oven. So from this point on, my stove is off, and this is gonna go right to the oven to finish out cooking. 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how you like the interior of your steak cooked. I'm gonna go for like more of a medium here. So I'm gonna let it go probably about 12 minutes at about 350. So we're going to the oven right now, let's go. Into the oven she goes. All right, nice hot oven, nice hot pan. Boom, that's it. That's in the oven, nice and hot. Gonna let that go for 12 to 15 minutes or until it's done to your desired doneness on the interior. This is so easy, guys. Again, it's all about know-how. It's all about the right ingredients. It's super simple. It's super easy. In H-E-B, we are here to help. Don't forget, you can head to your local meat market, certified meat cutters, willing and able to help you with any of your holiday needs, whether it's tenderloin or a holiday ham, or even just picking out the proper prime rib for you this holiday season. We've got everything you need. We're gonna carve this steak in just a few minutes. All right, so the one in the back, I temped out, is at about 122. The one in the front, the smaller one, temped out about 130. So we are going to call that good, because that way I'll let them rest. And one will come to about medium, one will go to more of a medium well, which I think is totally fine. But those will rest, really simple. The smell is unbelievable. The thyme, now you've got this kind of like, the crusty meat smell, a little bit of that, the rendered beef fat, all that stuff just kind of in the pan. All right, that is it. Our herb crusted beef tenderloin, folks, done. Super simple, great for the holidays. Again, for anything you may need, especially meat related, you can head on over to your H-E-B local meat market. Our certified meat cutters will take care of everything you need. Whether you're doing a holiday ham, a beautiful herb crusted tenderloin like I did, or a little prime rib, however you want to do it. And the prime ribs aren't exactly little, they're huge. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more great holiday content. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me.